At 2:13 in the morning, Sera Mensah stood in the middle of a wedding hall with a mop in one hand and a stolen contract in the other. 30 rich men stared at her like she had crawled out from under the marble floor. The bride was already wearing diamonds. The groom was already holding the pen. And the woman who cleaned their rooms was the only person who knew that one signature would cost him everything. Lee Hyun looked at Sera once. Not like a master looks at a maid. Like a drowning man recognizes the hand above the water. Sera lifted the contract and said the sentence nobody in that family had the courage to say. Do not sign that. 6 hours earlier, Sera was not brave. She was tired. Her rent was late, her phone screen was cracked, and the cleaning agency had just offered her a night shift that paid 3 times the usual rate. The address was not written down. It was sent as a pin, then deleted. That should have been enough warning. But hunger makes warnings sound expensive. So Sera tied her hair back, took the last bus across Seoul, and walked through iron gates tall enough to make the city outside feel poor. The mansion belonged to the Lee family. The kind of family people spoke about in lowered voices, even when they were alone. Inside, the house moved like a machine. Florists carried white orchids through the halls. Chefs whispered over silver trays. Tailors steamed black suits that looked more like armor than clothing. Everyone was preparing for an engagement ceremony between Lee Hyun and Yoon Baek, the daughter of a rival family. Sera was told one rule. Do not speak unless spoken to. She had heard that rule in hotels, offices, and expensive apartments. It always meant the same thing. Become furniture. But furniture sees what people do when they think no one important is looking. Sera first saw Lee Hyun in the library. He stood beneath a wall of old books while 3 older men explained his future to him as if he were not in the room. The marriage would calm the investors. The Baek alliance would protect the ports. The ceremony would prove the young heir knew how to obey. Hyun said nothing. That was what everyone mistook about him. They thought silence meant agreement. Sera knew better. Silence was sometimes the sound a person made while deciding which part of himself to bury. The first clue was in the trash. Sera was emptying a brass bin in the second-floor study when a torn page slid out between a napkin and a broken wax seal. Most cleaners would have thrown it away. Sera did not. Before the agency, before the night shifts, she had worked for a legal clerk who taught her one useful habit. Always read the page people tried to destroy. The words were dense, but the shape was simple. Emergency voting power. Transfer on marriage. Baek Holding Company. The wedding was not a wedding. It was a quiet robbery wearing white flowers. Then Sera met Yoon Baek. The bride sat before a mirror while 2 stylists fixed diamonds into her hair. She was beautiful in the way expensive knives are beautiful. Sharp enough to admire from a distance. When Sera entered with towels, Yoon did not turn around. Put them down, she said. Then she smiled at her own reflection and added, some women are lucky to be allowed inside a house like this. Sera placed the towels beside the vanity. In the mirror, she saw Yoon slide a signet ring from her own finger into Hyun's ceremonial box. Wrong family seal. Wrong hand. Wrong bride. Sera took the torn page to the laundry room because servants understand danger faster than sons. Mrs. Choi, the head housekeeper, read it once. Then she locked the door. For 20 years, Mrs. Choi had cleaned after the Lee family. She knew which uncle drank before lying. Which advisor changed shirts after secret meetings. Which guest left through the garden when he was pretending to be loyal. A house keeps records without a pen. Mrs. Choi pointed to one name on the page. Dae-sik Lee. Hyun's cousin. The man in charge of tonight's signatures. At 10:41, Sera followed the sound of Dae-sik's voice to the winter garden. He stood behind a wall of glass, laughing softly into his phone. No, he said, Hyun will sign before midnight. After that, the ports move, the board moves, and his mother cannot save him. Sera felt the old fear climb into her throat. Not fear of powerful men. She had seen enough of those. Fear of knowing the truth and still being too small to matter. Then Daesik said one more thing. The cleaner found nothing. And Sera's fear turned into insult. Sera found Hyun alone in the service corridor, away from the guests, away from the cameras, away from the life everyone was arranging around his neck. She held out the torn page. Your cousin is selling you, she said. Hyun looked at the paper, then at her uniform. For 1 second, he made the mistake every rich man makes. He wondered what authority she had. Sera saw the thought cross his face and almost laughed. Authority? She had none. That was why she had been able to hear everything. You invited wolves into a house full of servants, she said. We are the only ones they forgot to lie to. Hyun took her to Chairwoman Lee. His mother was not in the ballroom. She was in a small sitting room, drinking tea beneath a portrait of a husband everyone still obeyed though he was dead. She listened without moving. When Sera finished, the old woman asked one question. Why risk your job for my son? Sera answered before she could make herself sound polite. I am not risking my job for your son. I am risking it because women like me are always told to clean the mess after powerful people make it. Tonight I saw the mess before it happened. Chairwoman Lee set down her cup. Then do not clean it, she said. Expose it. At 11:38, the ceremony changed. Yuna stood and announced that the signing would happen before the toast. She said it sweetly, like a bride eager to honor tradition. Daesik moved beside her with the contract folder already in his hands. The guests applauded because rich rooms clap for whatever looks expensive. Hyun stepped toward the table. Chairwoman Lee did not stop him. Not yet. Sera watched from the service entrance with a silver tray in her hands and Mrs. Choi behind her. The room was ready to swallow the air hole. So the servants opened the door. Sera crossed the hall slowly. Every step sounded too loud. A guard moved to block her. Chairwoman Lee raised 2 fingers, and the guard became stone. Sera placed the silver tray on the signing table. On it were 3 things. The torn claws from the trash. Yuna's ring from the ceremonial box. And a laundry receipt from Daesik's jacket, marked with the same private room where the Beck lawyers had met that afternoon. No speech. No drama. Just proof. Sera looked at Hyun. If you sign, the emergency vote moves before sunrise. Your empire leaves this house before your bride does. Daesik laughed first. It was the wrong laugh. Too high. Too quick. The laugh of a man reaching for a door that was no longer there. Yuna called Sera a maid as if the word could shrink her. But Hyun did not look away from the tray. He picked up the ring. Then he looked at his bride's hand. Empty. He looked at the seal on the contract. Wrong. And finally he looked at Sera. For the first time that night, the room followed his eyes. The invisible woman became the center of the house. The engagement ended without a scream. That was how powerful families preferred their disasters. Quiet. Polished. Escorted out by men who did not ask questions. Yuna left with her diamonds and without the signature. Daesik left with 2 elders walking beside him and no phone in his hand. When the hall emptied, Hyun found Sera in the kitchen washing the tray because habit is harder to kill than fear. He offered her an envelope. She did not take it. I already have a cleaning job, she said. If you want me to read your contracts, give me a desk. Hyun smiled once. Not warm. Real. Name your title. By sunrise, Sera Mensah had a desk beside the legal office, a salary the agency would never believe, and a new rule written into the Lee household. No document entered the mansion until she read it. Mrs. Choi called it justice. Chairwoman Lee called it useful. Hyun called it the first honest decision his family had made in years. Sera called it work. Because that was the part none of them understood. She had not saved the empire because she loved danger. She saved it because the house had finally done what houses do. It remembered who had been watching. They hired a maid to clean the room. They did not know the room had found its witness.